Well, it is day 100, and who even cares anymore, of the Hollywood strike in which writers and actors refuse to go to work. Now, you may think that they have good reason to do so. In fact, you may even be someone who is affected by this. We're all about to be affected because entertainment is coming to a halt. The pipeline is being drained of all the content that you might look forward to in the future. And yet, in spite of that, in spite of the fact that the strike now is going on much longer than strikes before it, it seems that most of America just doesn't care. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another video where we endeavor to explain entertainment and keep you ahead of the culture curve. We all love good shows. We all enjoy a great movie. And yet, it seems that audiences are not all that worried about the idea that there's a strike preventing those great shows and good movies from being made. What in the world is going on here? In the past, there's been great pressure put on studios to resolve strikes. Other than a few entities like the New York pension plans coming out and saying, hey, get your act together, it doesn't seem like too many people care that Hollywood is shut down. This is perhaps a California-centric sort of issue. The folks over in Iowa, the guys and gals up in South and North Dakota, even the lobster catchers in Maine, they don't even care. Nobody is too worried about this stoppage, and that is a new situation. We also think that it may signal that something is happening bigger, something that is perhaps happening that the mainstream isn't covering, and that's what we're here to bring forth for you. Let's join in the conversation we had on the Pro Show Live last Thursday and see what you think about it. This out of Deadline by David Robb. WGA West calls for government regulation of anti-competitive practices of Disney, Amazon, and Netflix. For those of you keeping score, the Hollywood strike of 2007 went on for only 100 days. Its reverberations are felt all the way until this day. So it was extremely significant. We are now in day 108 of this current strike, and there is no end in sight. So let's take a look at how this is being actually escalated as opposed to being brought to a close. In a shot across the bow of the giant media companies that it's negotiating with to end its 100-day-old strike, the WGA West released a report today that calls for more government regulation of what it calls the anti-competitive practices of Disney, Amazon, and Netflix, which it accuses of abusing their dominance to further disadvantage competitors, raise prices for consumers, and push down wages for the creative workforce. Now, I would be amiss to not point out the irony in this, because the WGA is pushing forth quite a few proposals that are anti-competitive in their very nature. And at the same time now, they're going to hit the studios, the corporations, with this same kind of accusation. So I'm not sure that I buy into necessarily their position so much as I think they're building a very strong narrative, and they're trying to put pressure on the companies. So here's what it says. Writers being forced to strike in this climate should come as a surprise to no one, said WGA West Research and Public Policy Director Laura Bloom-Smith. We're transitioning from a period of rapid investment and competition that brought about a new and diverse content to a monopolistic model. Monopolistic, folks, pay attention to that will concentrate control over entertainment programming in the hands of just a few large and powerful corporations. For writers, that means fewer buyers for their work, employers who exert more leverage in individual deal negotiations, and depressed pay and working conditions. It goes on to say, and specifically, I guess, about Disney, which is a company we cover often here. Disney has grown through a series of multi-billion-dollar acquisitions using its power to reduce film output, shut down competing studios, foreclose independent content from its distribution networks, expand control of the labor market, and force creators to give up financial participation in future licensing revenue. It doesn't seem like they like Amazon or Netflix anymore. Now, let's remember that really there are a couple of sticking points here for the WGA, which is now expanded, of course, into SAG-AFTRA, etc. They do not want artificial intelligence at all, zero, none. And they also want guarantees both on residuals and on the number of writers that they're going to get into the writers' rooms. Now, all of that is, just by virtue of what it is, anti-competitive, right? Because it's anti-competitive if you're telling the studios they can't use the tools of the next generation. At the same time, They are claiming that the studios themselves are anti-competitive and monopolistic. So whatever you might think about all of this, the bottom line is we are nowhere close to a resolution. Alan, where does this go if we keep going until October, November? What is going to happen to the industry?
Oh yeah, it'll implode. It'll collapse. It's weird. It's weird. I agree with the WGA's assertion that the companies are too big. That they're. I've been saying this a long time about not only Disney and Netflix, but about Amazon and Google. These companies are too large. Look, I've been an American for all my life. I've always been against monopolies, and I just feel like at some point someone's got to step in and tear these guys down. Maybe Disney shouldn't be a theme park, a studio, a television network station, cable channels. Maybe it needs to focus on just being an entertainment company and then sell off its parts. But at the same time, you brought up a point that I hadn't even thought of. But the union itself is shooting itself in the foot by forcing an agreement that all the studios must follow versus, hey, work for Disney because they offer back-end participation, they offer better wages. Hey, let's work for Universal because they're offering this. There's not a competitive nature. The union itself is kind of preventing competitiveness for writers, for good writers, where the good ones rise to the top. And so it's kind of one of those. It's kind of they're both right. The corporation's too big. At the same time, the WGA is asking for unrealistic things that don't foster quality and don't foster excellence in writing and entertainment and acting, so to speak.
I read a lot of this report that this article is based off of, and some of the points that don't quite make it in there. Disney is intending to do an additional price increase. They think they're going by Moffett-Nathanson's numbers that say that Disney is going to be the most dominant streaming service. I'm going to say that that's probably not a good analysis. Moffett-Nathanson seems to not understand Disney's business model based on some other things we've seen. But they're saying that Disney actually pressured creators to forego participation in their licensing revenue, and that they tried to get them into early payments, which were a little bit higher, but would cut them off from royalties. And the more that Disney grows by controlling Fox and controlling Hulu and controlling Disney Plus and controlling Disney's channels there, especially because they were on top when they were making a lot of these deals, or they would say when it was renegotiation time, they would use everything they had to try to force them out. And if you want control of your series, well, you need to go somewhere else. I'm seeing a lot of really disappointing things out of Disney. I mean, obviously Disney's been doing some pretty disappointing things on the content side here, but on the negotiation side, it seems like they are, as more comes to light, it gets worse and worse and worse. That being said, the WGA West is calling for regulation to be brought in to bring all of these studios to heel, all of these big tech companies and streaming services to heel, to try to say, no, they can't merge any further, like to make them these streaming services akin to the big networks like ABC and Fox and CBS and all of that. I think they are trying to basically replicate the previous environment of regulation here, again, on the internet. That seems very problematic. If I had to guess, Culture, you probably have something really astounding to say.
No. Everybody here has been rather eloquent and very
Not me.
So it's true. But I mean,
well,
Mark,
speaking of eloquence, let's go ahead and bring in someone who is quite eloquent, and then we'll get to your point. But I don't want to leave her in the backstage area any longer, folks. Let's welcome back a fan favorite of the channel. Lorena Creel joins us yet again.
Hey.
Hello, everyone.
Finally,
the crowd goes wild.
Party in here.
Now let me real quick. Let me show everybody. We want to play fair here. We've presented the one side of the argument that's going on with this strike. But real quick, we're not going to read the entire article by any means. But I do just want to briefly mention this. On the other side of it, from the other point of view, this out of Variety by Gene Madhouse, TV staff minimum remains key sticking point, but some in WGA privately grumble nobody asked for this. This goes on to talk about how there is the requirement, which is anti-competitive by its very nature, that these studios will have a specific number of writers, no matter if they need them or not, in the writers' rooms. And it goes on to talk about how things are now stretching out to the point as these writers lose their incomes. It's getting to the point now where there's beginning to be a fracturing, right? Cracks in the unity of the union. And so, folks, if you'd like, go read this. But I do want, in all fairness, to bring forth that there's multiple sides of this, and it's just messy.
Not only that, guys, but there's also a push too about the whole diversity question when it comes to writers and the amount of diversity that you have in the writers' room. You know, I've seen a couple of articles where they were talking about that as well. Like you had to have a certain amount of, LGBTQ representation, Black representation, you know, so that kind of complicates the matter as well, I would imagine.
She-Hulk was a great example of that, by the way.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Bring in
Alan, talk about that. Yeah, don't let that go. Explain that to the audience about the She-Hulk thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, She-Hulk was, it's the point I was going to make earlier was, can you imagine telling Aaron Sorkin he doesn't have enough writers in his writers room? It's art. People are really good at writing, should be able to keep writing and earn a lot of money doing it. And they should be also able to dictate how many people are in their writer's room if they even want a writer's room. You know, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for quality and excellence, which is something the studios no longer want. They're no longer concerned about excellence. And so
you realize
this idea that this show didn't work because there wasn't enough diversity in the writers' room is a fallacy. The show didn't work because there wasn't enough excellence, expertise, and people who know what they're doing in the writers' room. And in my life, anytime I ever put a team together, it has always been diverse out of no fault of my own. It just happened, and I have to believe if you get now today in 2023, if you get the best writers together, you're going to see a diverse room.
If this thing keeps going, and we continue to see the audience moving away from the big studios towards small content creators such as YouTubers, etc., I'm thinking that perhaps the writers for She-Hulk, they've got to have a little sweat on their brow, because some of these people who have been highly unsuccessful, they may not be brought back after this thing's over. I mean, they run the real risk that the longer this goes, they could put themselves so far out there that when all is said and done, they're in a new career path where it's not quite so lucrative. And so I would be very careful if I were the writers and the actors that I don't tank the industry and make it very easy for them to be parted ways with. I guess I'll leave it there.
Someone said that early on, where it seemed like the studios were basically squeezing out the newer writers, the ones who, basically economically squeezing them out so that they move away and go get other jobs. And the only people left are the good ones who earned enough money writing legitimate stuff to now be able to work on real projects. And
I've actually visited that a few times, and I think you here on the stream were talking about it. I think we've already crossed the tipping point of the industry going past the point of no return, at least for a lot of the people that have been practicing acting, show running, all these other jobs that are going to be harder to get in the future. But I think you're right. I think we've already had it to the point where, and again, this is just, essentially adding on to what you said, Alan. I think we've already passed the point where Hollywood's imploding. I think it's happening. I think we're watching it in real time.
Especially with all the foreign content. Oh, I'm sorry, Alan.
I'm just going to say, no one cares. I mean, I remember the first writer strike. It affected late night television, which I watched. And it was like, we're going months without new Conan O'Brien and new Jay Leno. And now it's like, I don't care.
So that's actually a really good point, is because the writer's room controlled that, and much of America was actually listening to their content. And the writer's room is so critical to Conan O'Brien and to Jay Leno was that they actually had this mouthpiece, and their bosses wanted to be funnier on screen, so they were willing to sing their praises. I mean, Conan O'Brien was right out there during the writer strike singing the praises of his people. But
yeah,
now,
don't forget Conan O'Brien. They made Conan O'Brien go back without writers, and so he had to do his show off the cuff and completely improvised.
Right, and he
was one of the only ones who could do it. I mean, you really found out who actually had talent.
Well, like
yeah, Ian Jay.
I don't
Didn't
think
he write for The Simpsons though?
Yes, he did for a very long time, and he was a head writer on SNL.
He's a big fan of monorails, I hear.
Monorail.
Only made sense.
But another point out. Sorry, Jones.
I just want to say this
first always.
This time around. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut everybody off, but this time around they don't have that mouthpiece. They have the trades, which nobody trusts the trades right now, and they're not writing anything that's going directly into everybody's mouthpiece from someone that the audience loves. So I think they've lost an advantage here as writers. Someone else.
Yeah.
Hey Jonas, we've got to pause for a moment because folks, we did it. We have pushed Force of Light Entertainment over the 20K mark. This, I've got a smile on my face. This is the kind of fun and joy that we want to build. This is what it's all about. We love watching the success of our friends and the fact that you all helped us get Force of Light to 20K. I can't imagine how happy they're going to be when they see this. So thank you, everybody. We are going to be able to end this show in just a little bit after we do our super chats and member chats. We're not going to rush through. But when we end today, we can say that we really had a good impact that made a little bit of a difference out there. So thank you all.
Awesome.
How kind of that.
That's awesome. But Pro, I guess going back to the other question, you're basically saying, we're saying that television, it's going kind of away. The major broadcast studios are kind of like on its last leg. But look at what you did right now. You interacted with the chat, in a way that if other creators were affected, the chat is obviously you had a direct content with your audience, and they were able to affect change. And this is the future television. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I got YouTube hooked up to my TV. It's part of the TV now. Yesterday, I wasn't watching a TV show. I was watching Dark Council. Abu Naz, Mark with a C, and Lorena Creel. I was watching you guys. So it's like this is the future of television.
Thank you.
Man, Fletch.
Also, another
Fletch,
thing to add too is
real quick, Lorena. Let me say this. I think partly what we're witnessing in the paradigm shift is that people like Rachel Zegler, they don't know how to engage with this new society where the good and the bad that we are is exposed fully to the audience. And so, for example, everybody that's on this panel right now, especially those who are on camera even, the audience is watching all of us and they're gauging our authenticity. They're gauging, the kind of responses that we give and whether we're the kind of people that are deserving of them watching this sort of a show. In the past, in the big era of Hollywood, celebrities were largely kept away from the public eye. And so you saw their basic interview responses, you saw them on the big screen, but the Hollywood star was able to shine because you had that scarcity. Now, I think that people like Rachel Zegler, they don't know how to handle giving the aura of stardom while at the same time going online and telling people that it's hard living in your brain. Those are dramatically opposed to one another. Lorena, your point.
The other thing I was going to say is there is a wealth of foreign entertainment in the streaming services. Better entertainment than we have like here in America, like on Netflix. When I bring up my Netflix, the recommendations I'm getting: anime, South Korean K-dramas. God, I'm so hooked on K-dramas. K-dramas, Indian movies. You're getting all of this foreign content. Yeah, and it's just like this stuff is good, and there's like there's tons of it that's on. So people have much more choice. This isn't like the first writer's strike. There's more things out there to watch, and we have more accessibility, plus what you have on DVD as well, on physical media, YouTube, all of that. People are just like, writer's strike, y'all figure that out, because right now there really isn't an economic incentive for the studios to come to an agreement anytime soon.
You know, you mentioned Indian cinema, and I just have to point out the fact that RRR. I heard about that
drink.
I feel like
Drink.
once
Yes.
a day from Alan.
Drink,
and
take a
Chris over
sip,
on the
drink.
Film Threat channel.
Alan, drink.
I know.
You gotta watch that movie.
Wow.
All right, folks, that is a close on the conversation, but the commentary begins. Drop a comment down below. We care about what you think. It's not just a dialogue between us and our guests. No, this is a community, and you're part of it. Drop a comment down below. We read them. We often respond. We covet what you think and what's on your mind. Folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe. And when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Don't forget that the Pro Show is live every Thursday, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you'd consider becoming a member of the channel, well, you just click the little join button, and it's the price of a soda per month. You'll gain access to all the archives for every single Pro Show we've ever done. For all the rest of the general public, the Pro Show goes private after 48 hours. But members get access to it all. Folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.